Il y a quelques communautés qui sont toujours en train d'envoyer des patients pour des services dans le système de santé, mais la plupart de les évacuations sont complètes.
Quel message pour les Manitobains après 10 jours d'état d'urgence?
Bien, pendant une semaine, nous avons déménagé 18 000 de nos voisins et voisines à une situation plus sécuritaire, avec des logements, avec de la nourriture, avec des services de santé. Alors, je te remercie en tant que le peuple du Manitoba.
Le Premier ministre Mark Carney va déposer son projet de loi pour les projets nationaux aujourd'hui. Vous vous attendez à quoi?
Nous avons jasé beaucoup lundi au sujet de ce projet de loi et comme le Manitoba, nous avons un projet pour vraiment bâtir ce pays dans le nord de notre province. Alors, j'espère que nous pourrons continuer de travailler ensemble avec le Premier ministre du Canada pour bâtir le Manitoba et bâtir le Canada.
Ça se passe comment avec les autres provinces? Ça se passe comment avec les autres provinces?
Très bien, très bien. Yeah. L'Alberta et Saskatchewan étaient engagés avec ces conversations sur les méga-projets, mais en même temps, je pense que nous, comme le Manitoba, nous avons les embrassés et dit « Hey, travaillons ensemble pour avancer vos intérêts économiques et puis aussi pour nos opportunités ici dans le Manitoba. »
Mr. Premier, given that it's the feds that generally actually govern provincial trade, what does a MOU with BC do tangibly?
Doing an MOU with BC, the same thing that we did with Ontario, is about opening up big new markets for Manitoba businesses to sell into, whether it's a service for a consulting firm or whether it's a business who's going to send a physical good to another province. So the federal government has committed to remove every trade barrier that they had in place by July 1. So with the federal government stepping back, they got one exception around national security, but with them largely stepping back, it just allows us at the provincial level to open things up for business, to go out and create the jobs and create the economic opportunity.
The question is, what tangible, what is it, can you give an example of something tangible that an MOU does besides big picture, makes it look like you're doing stuff? Give me something concrete.
Well, the MOU with Ontario specifies having a direct-to-consumer alcohol deal in place. So there's specifics that we're working on there. I think, we haven't signed the deal with BC yet, but I know one of the things we're talking about with them has to do with lumber. And, you think about the Swan Valley operation that we have here and some of the people work in the bush to support that industry. It's about working together to make sure that we're protecting jobs and creating more opportunity in the future.
What about labor mobility? I mean, is the plumber going to be able to work from BC in Manitoba?
That's some of those barriers are coming down as part of this process. So one specific example that Minister Freeland at the federal level has been talking about is land surveyors, who right now need both a provincial designation and a federal one. Federal one is going to be taken away, so it'll just be a provincial license. So yeah, we're going to see some steps moving forward for people to be able to work in different provinces, and that means, if we're going to build a big project here in northern Manitoba and we can get more tradespeople, more engineers, more consultants working, that'd be great for the economy.
How about nurses? Are you afraid of losing more nurses to other provinces if they better?
We have a strong healthcare system that we're strengthening with work-life balance, with more opportunities to advance and to be part of something exciting here in Manitoba. So in addition to having good wages and those work-life considerations met, I think the environment that we're providing in Manitoba is something that's going to be attractive for nurses today and tomorrow.
Are you going to put in steps to prevent nurses from having the same mobility just to ensure that the healthcare system has enough nurses?
Yeah, we're always going to make sure that the healthcare system not only has enough nurses, but that we increase the number. As we've been doing for the time since we took government, we're going to continue growing.
Hey, sorry, I gave you a double-barrel question. You took me out there. So I want you to answer the question. Will you prevent nurse mobility? Period.
I guess I very gently, very calmly, very compassionately reject the framing of the question and just say that we're going to continue adding nurses. And so thing that I think people need to look at is we've added, several hundred nurses to the bedside since we've taken office, and we'll continue to see those numbers go up.
So I'm going to very calmly, very gently reframe my question then. Will there be a measure to prevent nurses from going to other provinces as part of general labor mobility, Mr. Premier?
We're going to see the number of nurses working at the bedside continue to increase, and that's what Manitobans want to see.
So it would be accurate for me to say you did not answer that question, Mr. Premier.
I think the way that I've answered the question is to point out that nursing numbers have increased since we took office, and they will continue to do so.
I'm going to try to rephrase.
Okay.
Will nursing be part of labor mobility? It's a regulated profession. So will, as you move...
Well, it already is, right? Yeah. Okay, so then where does the question go from there?
We've seen examples of some barriers from nurses from other provinces. Because it's regulated.
Yeah, some of these decisions are with the college. So one example we have that's unique to Manitoba is with what we call an LPN in our province, having a higher level of training compared to a comparable category in another province like, say, Ontario. So those decisions that the college makes around self-regulated professions are the decisions that they do as an independent body, and we're here just to make sure that we get free trade in Canada by Canada Day.
You talked about northern about an energy corridor.
Yeah.
And I'm a little unclear. I've been away for a bit, but are you talking about expanding the port of Churchill, building a second port on Hudson's Bay, and or both?
I think we're like, just as like a foundational piece or table setting, I'd say we're going to continue investing in the Port of Churchill. This is a crucial piece of infrastructure for that community and all the Bayline communities that rail line serves. Now that we're talking about a Western corridor and getting Western Canadian natural resources, ag goods, minerals, all these important economic opportunities to market, we want to take a look and say what's the best path to reaching the European Union. We know it's going to be on Hudson Bay, so we're going to put that call out for proposals and make sure that we're shaking all the trees, covering all our bases as we move forward.
A proposal for what, though, Mr. Premier? Because what is the specific ask of the federal government here? What are we talking about? Like, there's a big difference between expanding the Port of Churchill so you can put more ships in, to putting more infrastructure there, to creating a new port near there, to creating a new port hundreds of kilometers down the coastline. Like, what's the actual ask here? Please provide some more specificity.
Specificity? Yeah. It's early, right? We're all helping each other out. A corridor would bring a road, all-season road, a transmission line, probably a pipe, broadband together within a right-of-way to travel through northern Manitoba to get to Tidewater and to send our electricity to the west. So when we're talking about decarbonization, that's probably the big opportunity for Canada, is for us to send low-carbon electricity to Saskatchewan and Alberta. And when we're talking about powering our Canadian economy, the opportunity is probably about sending resources from Alberta and Saskatchewan through Hudson Bay to the European Union and other international markets. The approach that we're going to take is to be agnostic and to turn to the private sector and say, okay, here's the broad strokes of a corridor, and now you, using the ingenuity and the innovation that the private sector brings, you help us sort through these different challenges and answer these questions. So if there's going to be a port on Hudson Bay, you tell us what is the best location that will allow for year-round service. Is it the Port of Churchill with an icebreaker? Is it the Port of Nelson? Is it some other solution there? If we're looking at the routes through northern Manitoba, we have a broad consensus, I'm sure, that it's going to be in the northern part of our province at a slight diagonal going towards the east. But what is the actual route? Let's have the private sector pitch their solutions. And then when we're talking about a pipe, what is the product that makes sense? Are we going to be looking at liquefaction, and then maybe it's an LNG thing? Are we looking at oil and gas projects? Are we looking at something novel like green hydrogen or maybe a potash slurry? These are the things that we can signal to the private sector. we're open to having a discussion about, and then they build the business case, they build the business plan to say, here's what we think makes sense from the dollars and cents perspective.
So nothing's off the table in terms of LNG or oil. What will you do to mitigate the environmental concerns that come with shipping shipping petroleum products through an environmentally sensitive and meteorologically volatile area?
Yeah, I think those are some of the key questions that we want to take the time to get right. So there's an urgency right now with these nation-building projects and a national unity dynamic too when working with Alberta and Saskatchewan. But we also need to get the environmental piece right. And so I'd say there's probably two big picture principles that we want to keep in mind. One, engaging with Indigenous nations and northern communities, particularly around some of the wildlife and ecological considerations. So increasing tanker traffic in the Port of Churchill might make sense for the economy, but does that make sense for beluga and polar bear driven tourism? That's a question we need to sort out as a province together. And then the second major piece, the Prime Minister has been talking about decarbonized barrels. So how do we, if we're going to work with conventional energy, and like I said, maybe we'll do something novel like hydrogen other than that, but if we are going to work with conventional energy, what are we doing in terms of export contracts going west to make sure that we're offsetting any greenhouse gas emissions? Or are we doing carbon capture and utilization and storage? Or, is there a way that we can ensure that as we build, we're also moving forward on climate change?
So I look at that northern corridor and you say there's the right place for it. You've got Wapusk taking up a huge stretch of the coastline to the east and south of Churchill, all the way up to the Nelson River. To the northeast of there, you have a sensitive polar bear habitat all the way to the Ontario border. To the north of Churchill, it's sensitive. Where there's got to be, even at this point, somebody going, where is there a place that is fine to bury a pipeline, to do an offshore terminal like they do in Russia? Where do you think is even a feasible area for such a thing?
The map in northern Manitoba has these important conservation areas like the Seal River Indigenous Protected Area that we're going to want to work around. But it's important to know that a lot of the Indigenous nations in the north are at the table as part of this conversation, and they're the same people who are the proponents for some of these conservation areas. So I think there will be that. It's already been part of the discussions in terms of conservation areas and environmental protection, and as we move forward, that'll continue to be one of the really important dynamics that we get right along the way.
Does the Prime Minister promise something with respect to ice-hardened ships that could respond to spills?
We've made it clear that that is going to be part of our path forward here. We could use more icebreakers, polar class icebreakers, and that's how you can make this a truly nation-building project. If we're having a natural resource play for Western Canada, including Manitoba, but we're also maybe putting people to work in eastern shipyards in Ontario, Quebec, or Nova Scotia, and we structured the procurement so the raw materials come from other parts of the country. That's a way we can make this a winner for all Canadians.
You see this as big as the LNG terminal at Kitimat, BC?
Potentially, but we need to, first of all, establish the process that's going to work for Manitoba with the concerns around the environment and the economic opportunities. And then we can go to the market and see, how big is this opportunity actually when we try to attach dollars to it.
Mr. Premier, I have a question on the wildfire front.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have an update on, hotel space? I know that obviously you mentioned Ontario has stepped up.
Yeah.
What's the latest on what the province is doing to try to get as many people as possible out of emergency centers?
Yeah, basically where we're at now is just at a triage position when we're talking about evacuees from the wildfire. So as we speak here, there's more than 18,000 people who have registered. The vast majority of those folks are now in hotel rooms or private accommodations, meaning they're staying with friends and family, or organizations like the MMF or Norway House have stepped up with buildings. So for those folks who are still in shelters, it's just a matter of matching them with rooms as they come online. We're seeing about, over the past few days, maybe a couple hundred rooms come available per day. And we just have to do a balancing act as new medical patients come in from northern Manitoba, because some communities continue to evacuate due to